I moved to Austin, like a lot of people in the 90s, thinking like, if I want to go into film and filmmaking in Texas, that's where I need to go. And, there was a while there where I almost went to NYU, and I just thought, there's something about Austin that felt more comfortable and more, intimate. And then, with South by Southwest, I just kind of like, there was something about that really struck a chord with me, and something I really took to, and, realized that the films I was making, the short student films I was making, were really bad, and that there was something about knowing that maybe meant that I should try something else. And luckily Austin, what's really interesting about Austin and going to film school in Austin too is that a lot of people are like, well, how was the film school when you were there? And it's like, it was a good film school, but it was great being in Austin, because it's so accessible and so close-knit and so collaborative. It's like when somebody new moves to town, everyone tries to sort of embrace that person. It's not really competitive in that way. Unlike a lot of other places. I think it's because of the university in a lot of ways. I think because there's that culture of new blood every year, that and the fact that most of us who are in the arts community in Austin weren't like born and raised in Austin. We all sort of moved here because of the arts community. And so I think there's like a camaraderie about that, unlike say maybe in New York or LA, where you do have people who born and bred in that community feel that they are, somehow sort of...
That they own it.
Yeah. Or that they're
or sons and daughters of people who are already in the industry.
Agents or producers, Whereas here, everyone's kind of trying to make a name for themselves on their own terms.
I did move here from LA. I was in LA for 18 years. Austin was a shock to me because it was so different from LA in terms of collaboration, synergy, support. And I always tell people about, in Austin, people really will help you out. Whereas in LA, not only will they not help you, they'll go out of their way not to help you. So it's indescribable almost. The Austin vibe, which is, it's good and it's bad because it is so wonderful here. That's why so many more people keep coming in, which really helps in some ways, but at the same time, it spreads everything thinner.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, I always tell people, like, Austin is a great place to learn how to make movies, but it's not a great place to make a living making movies.
That's exactly what I say.
And because really still, 13 years after El Mariachi, like, there still hasn't been a really successful Austin filmmaker that stayed here and has a name, at the level of like Rodriguez or
well, there's a lot of work, you just don't get paid for it.
But I would say that there's definitely more paid work now than there was like when I graduated from film school in 1996. I mean, as soon as I graduated from film school, I basically sent out my resume to every single, I got on the Texas Film Commission website, found out about every single movie, like, from bigger feature to tiny little indie film shooting here. And I sent out my resume and I like pounded the pavement for about 6 months and just couldn't even get a job as like an unpaid PA on something. But now, it's like earlier in 2006, there was a period where there were like 4 major productions going on, including Friday Night Lights and other bigger movies that were shooting here, smaller and bigger movies. And so it was just like so many people were employed for about 3 or 4 months there where, people were hurting for crews. Like they couldn't find enough people experienced, help to work on movies, but now, like in the last several months, it's been a pretty dry time. The times when there's a lot of productions going on now, it's way different than it was back in '96.
Well, at least there's the glimmer, the hope that something's coming soon, and it probably is. Which all relates back to the whole Texas legislator and incentives. We've really been working behind the scenes on that to get more stuff coming on here.
There's a lot of concern about that.
Hopefully by the time this airs, the incentives will be passed.
Absolutely.
It won't matter.
Absolutely.
The pool of resources here is deep, but the opportunities are scarce, and it's interesting because I think that there are those filmmakers who have to sort of share their time between Austin and LA or Austin and New York because that's the only way they can keep things viable.
There are an awful lot of filmmakers here too that don't want to work on other films. They want to work on their own stuff. And that's what makes it so hard is do you have a real job and you try and do this on the side, or is there a way that you can focus on this for a while? They're looking for resources and stuff in Austin. We're they can follow their dreams, and it's just not all in place for that.
No, and I mean, I don't know if it ever will be at the level that it is in Los Angeles or New York.
Right.
I mean,
definitely not.
But I think a lot of people are naive about that's what they expect to find here.
Yeah, or that's what they expect to happen.
Because it is so film friendly.
That's what I mean when I say it's a great place to learn how to make movies.
Exactly.
It's a great place to like get together and try to make something very small, very creative. And you will, if you seek it out, or if, you're a nice person, you'll find that community support there. And if you're like serious about it and not trying to convince everyone that you're going to like change the industry with your little movie, if you come to it with a more humble attitude, which is so much more refreshing than the kind of like aggressive attitude that some people have, where they're just, they're pissed off that like the Austin film community is not embracing them and somehow they're finding all the money and all the people that they need. Like that's one of the great things about going to the University of Texas, more so than the education that I got, was just meeting the people and developing relationships that have lasted, for over 10 years, ever since I graduated. Creative partnerships, collaborations that have brought me to great places. And I've been traveling around the state over the last several weeks doing these workshops for the production fund. We have this production fund that gives money to Texas filmmakers, and we do these workshops out of town to educate filmmakers outside of Austin, because pretty much everybody in Austin kind of knows about this grant program, but people outside of the state, they still need to be educated. And so I've traveled to Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and each of those places, like, they talk with great envy and admiration about the film community in Austin. And I think one of the key components to it, this is especially true in Houston, is that there isn't a film school in Houston. Like in that huge city of, fourth largest city in the country, there isn't like a dedicated degree program at one of the universities there that is giving you that new crop of excited, motivated young students who are just eager to learn, like you were when you first came to film school. They don't really have that there.
Maybe they just feel like they can't compete.
Well, as far as the reasons why.
University of Houston or?
Yeah, University of Houston, Rice.
Rice is like a new media something.
It's under the rubric of something else. So it's like you can make films there. And people like Kyle Henry, he graduated from that program.
Since you've been traveling all around Texas, are you getting people from the small towns and the communities we don't usually think of as being interested in film too?
I don't really know where everybody is coming from, but I do know that with TFPF, with our grant program, we do get applications, and a number of applications actually end up getting grants from the smaller towns around. Like we've had several films from Mexia, Texas, or
Mahia,
I don't know, whatever it's called.
That's where Anna Nicole Smith's from.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is because with Real Women, I get a lot of inquiries about starting other chapters of Real Women in places like East Texas, down in the Valley, Laredo, or people will say, there's nothing like this in my area. Would you consider starting something here? And we wouldn't, because obviously Austin's the place to do this because of the resources that are here, people to do workshops and speakers and opportunities to work on film and stuff like that. But it just sometimes makes me think about, are there ways we could reach out to these people?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that has already done that work in a way is the internet. I mean, it's like there's, people have access,
which is how they found us in the first place.
Exactly. They wouldn't have even been able to find you, or wouldn't even have been able to hear of you like even 6 years ago.
Right.